For the month of October, we'll be covering some of the greatest, and perhaps not so greatest, horror films ever crafted. Do they live up to their scares, or have they lost their fear factor over time? We close out October with an oxymoron. A Disney horror film. Two words you'll most likely hardly ever associate with each other. Tonight we're looking at 1980's The Watcher in the Woods. When two sisters move into an isolated mansion with their family, they begin to experience spooky visions of a blindfolded apparition that may be connected with their mysterious landlord, played by screen legend Bette Davis. Soon they discover a long-repressed secret and a sinister presence in the woods nearby. Now this was a strange period of time for Disney, essentially between 1975 and 1985, 1986. The studio started experimenting quite a bit with movies. They went into darker angles, they went into horror, they went into sci-fi. We had films such as Escape to Witch Mountain, The Black Hole, TRON, Something Wicked This Way Comes, Return to Oz, Dragon Slayer, and of course, tonight's feature film, Watcher in the Woods. Now, when I ask you gentlemen, hey, are you up for a Disney horror film? What did you expect?
Those words don't belong in the same paragraph, let alone the same sentence. So when you say to me, Tokyo, look, I want you to watch this Disney horror movie, I'm like, bro, man, get out of here, man. You're pulling my leg.
This is a film that has developed a bit of a cult following, possibly because of how atypical it is that it exists. I mean, this isn't just a whimsical Disney film that has some horror elements. When they were making this film, the producers straight up said that this was going to be Disney's Exorcist.
Oh my god.
Two other words I will never associate together, Disney and Exorcist. Anyway, neither of you had seen it until this particular moment. My first experience with this film was way back in the day. I saw it on the Disney Channel, probably in the late 80s. It could have been early 90s. This was, quite honestly, the first horror film I ever remember seeing. And at the time, I didn't even like it. But I was still intrigued. I was still intrigued by how atypical it was, and I think it's really what made me start trying to track down these different Disney types of films. It made me track down Tron. It made me track down Black Hole. All these other films that, I mean, you have to remember. You might think, okay, well, those aren't a big deal. Black Hole, whatever. This was Disney's answer to freaking Star Wars. And it was much more violent and gruesome and horrific than Star Wars ever really was.
Listen.
Unless you count The Last Jedi. But nevertheless.
Nice. Zing! I like what you did there, Demos. I'm going to tag you with it.
Master.
So I was skeptical just for the reason that you mentioned. Disney in a horror movie. Next thing you know, you're going to try to tell me that mint and chocolate go together. Okay. And listen, some people think mint chocolate chip cookies are great. Me, I'm still wondering why in the you put toothpaste on my chocolate candy. Okay, listen, no, and this movie was just the same thing. Oh, it was trying to do some things, and there were some certain devices that I enjoyed. But at the end of the day, you have mint chocolate chip, and that's how some people roll. Ain't me. Just saying.
I feel like you're painting me in a corner because I like Thin Mints, and I didn't necessarily care for this picture, so you can't. And see, okay, so let me go ahead and lay it down for you, right? So horror movie fans, listen to your guy. There are certain things that we expect in the horror movie, and they gave it to us. They had the kids. Look, all your horror movies, for the most part, have something to do with children as a centerpiece. The daughter immediately says to you, can we keep looking? Can we keep looking? Your child looks at you when you go into this place and straight up says, can we keep looking? And then when you say why, I'm expecting the child to give her one answer. She gave her 5 reasons why.
Yeah.
The atmosphere, this house, that old ass woman, something bad happened here, and I get a cold feeling every time I look at them woods. She gave you 5 reasons to leave. And for some strange reason, I mean, we had to have a movie, right? Because look, once I went to the house and I realized that I had to have an old ass woman living next door to me, she has to decide if I can pay to live here. Tokyo J would have been out then.
You have to think of what the demographic, its aimed demographic is. It's not intended for adults, but it's also not intended for little kids. This was the first time that Disney ever did such a thing. In its own advertisement, it said, "Don't bring the small kids to a Disney film." This was aimed more so for preteens and teenagers. So obviously, this is a horror film that doesn't really have it doesn't have any gore. It doesn't have any curse words or any of the more extreme things that were really starting to become really prevalent in the horror film in the horror genre, especially in the early 80s. This is a time where slasher films were starting to become the big thing. I mean, this film came out the same year that The Shining came out.
This movie is the Will Smith of horror movies.
Oh,
so Will Smith getting jiggy with it, but y'all, he's not cursing. Wow. This is the Will Smith of horror movies, baby. Holla at your boy.
Wow, I think Will Smith a little bit more talented than that, but I see what you're going.
No,
hey, no. Hey, that's a fresh take.
Well, stop it. No, Demos. No,
I wasn't trying to, look, don't let this. I was just talking about his clean.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying you're dissing Will Smith, but to prevent those such as the weak-minded such as me that I'm portraying here allegedly, this is the Backstreet Boys of horror movies. Can we be real about that? Okay, and I didn't want it that way.
Judging by your reactions to it, I know we're probably gonna rip it apart, but I really want to dive into some of the positives about this film. And there are a couple things I think it does very well. I like the atmosphere it sets up when they go into the woods. There is an encompassing feeling. They do set up dread and they do set up mystery very well. The resolution of the mystery, well, that's something else. But I think that the initial setup and atmosphere that the film builds upon is actually very strong, especially for a Disney film. It doesn't play apologetics. This is a film that does aim to try and scare kids, and there is something that I do quite kind of respect for the risk that was taken. I think that the two things that kill it, in my opinion, the acting, Lynn-Holly Johnson, the film's protagonist. Not only did she try to ruin one of my favorite James Bond films, For Your Eyes Only, but as far as setting up a mystery and building an atmosphere, I think those are things that the film does very well.
I'll give you that much credit. That the start of the movie is definitely its strongest point, with the tables being set. The thing with the mirror at first and the glass and her touching the glass and like seeing the blindfolded figure in the mirror, I'm like, all right, I'll play your game, Disney. I am not scared, but I am intrigued. Just because you force in some jump scares that make my body leap on a physical reaction rather than actually being scared, no. That's the cheapest stuff. And this is the reason why I have so much ire with this movie. Okay. You cheated. You went after me physiologically. Okay. This isn't like using jump cuts and going for my mind and wrestling in here. No, that's fair. That's fair game. You make my body nervous jump because you did something with the sound. No, I'm not cool with that. I've never been cool with that. And it's cheap. That's not risky. You're a dick. So, and I get that the target is kids, but then if that's your target and you feel like the only way to do that is again through cheap, no. But anyways,
I think it's also funny that the majority of the jump scares in this film are not due to the supernatural occurrences happening. Most of them are like the girl jumping up and trying to scare her sister, or the son cut to an amusement park ride.
Right. I know they were trying to make it Disney's Exorcist, which, Christ almighty. Which makes it all the more amazing that somebody went to a production meeting to says, hey, Disney, let's do the Hunchback of Notre Dame. What? But hey, that actually worked. So whatever. But the punchline is this. I feel like if it tried to go away similar to Escape from Witch Mountain, if they were trying to make Jan act a little bit more like a castaway instead of whatever the hell she was doing, this movie might have gone better. It had a good mystery element. This is I kind of get the pre-T thing target there, Demos. I feel like if it was trying to be more like, let's say, like a Babysitter's Club, or like Are You Afraid of the Dark, or like, Goosebumps, I guess, is the latest version. Cool. I think you got something there. But Disney Exorcist, I think, was what they, ended up leading them astray. You probably agree with me, but I just wanted to sound smarter than I did talking about the Backstreet Boys of horror.
I think it's almost, I see what you're saying, and for the most part, I agree. It is funny that this month we have covered Psycho, we have covered The Shining, we have covered The Exorcist, and I think that this is the movie that had the most jump scenes.
Seriously, it literally is. Crazy. The classic movies didn't need that cheap shit.
However, I will contend that having also grown up with Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps, I obviously it's unfair to really compare a motion picture to the series and so forth. I have more of an affinity to this because I think that this was far more effective in horror. There are some stories in Are You Afraid of the Dark, and more so that one than Goosebumps, but that could have been expanded to something far more interesting. But
right, I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
Some of the things that the movie did that I like, they wanted me to be comfortable. And so at the very beginning of the movie, when they're in the car and the realtor's saying, "Oh, this is the perfect house," and the little girl in the back, she's like, "She said that about all the other houses." And I'm immediately like, "Oh my God, that's a Ginsburg." Like, she flamed this woman. This is hilarious.
It really was great.
All right, so we're laughing at it, and our guard is down. So then they get to the house, and then we see the creepy old woman, and I'm like, "Oh snap!" Like, I thought this was a Disney film. I was just laughing at this Ginsburg. Now I got this creepy old woman following this young girl. Like, why is she not following around the adults and having conversations about money? She's following this young child. And then you find out that her daughter is gone. Like, that whole thing, I'm like, what's going to happen? Is she going to steal this child? Like, my mind made The Watcher in the Woods really, really crazy. Like, it went there. And I
want to see that version.
You don't want to see my version, baby. I am scary. But no, like, it's I did like the way that they built the tension. They did definitely, like, when she went to the window and seeing, like you said, seeing the girl in the blindfold. I'm like, what's going on? There's so many different ways that they could have went with it, and I think that that's part of my disappointment. Not necessarily trying to go back to the negative so soon, but that's part of, because I saw so much potential because I'm like, okay, it's a Disney horror movie, so we know the bar is where it is, but I saw so much because they did lay some solid groundwork at certain places.
Those scenes, like whenever the girl in the blindfold shows up, her first appearance in the mirror is I was hooked. That I'm like, okay, I'm with you, movie. Bring it on. Her appearance in the fun house, I thought, was very well shot. I thought that was a really effective scene. You see like a million of these blindfolded screaming girls reflected. I thought that was very, very well done. So the movie, I think it had a lot going for it. That little girl was probably a better actress than Lynn-Holly Johnson. I saw something in the mist by the pond. I mean, I'm making fun of it, and it sounds more convincing than she was. They do kind of spell a few things out because, once again, it's a kid's film. But I thought, like, the scenes of that little girl getting possessed and writing in the bathroom or writing backwards and stuff, I thought that stuff was pretty well done.
It was strong. I mean, just the only problem there is, the previous week we had seen Red Rum, and now you throw this at me. I'm like, yep, the shit says Karen, turn it the around.
Yeah, but once again, this came out the same year, so you can't exactly say that it was ripping it off.
Gotcha. But it's like me seeing High Anxiety before the other Hitchcock movies. It kind of ruined it for me,
if I look at this movie and looking at performances now, shouts out to Bette Davis. Seeing this movie made me go back and look at, she was a stone cold fox. I just want to go ahead and put that out there.
This film was released for the 50th anniversary of her acting career.
Holy shit.
I found, like, I looked her up, like, you know, she was born in 1908. She was back, way back. She was back before the Depression.
She's a screen legend.
Right? And she was a stone cold fox. Like, I just wanted to repeat that again. Like, she was really pretty. But the little girl, like, I honestly feel like you can take the younger sister out of this movie and put her in another movie and have her act the same way that she did in The Watcher in the Woods, and it would hit. She did her job.
That's what's up. And let me tell you why I know that's a fact, and that the people on the production did as well. There, Tokyo J. They kept going back to it like it was a well. Yeah. The problem is, after a while, you're like, "Who told you that?" Well, you just said it. I'm like, "All right, this is the 5th time you've done this shit. Can we go somewhere?" You know. And I'm not saying that to talk smack on your observation, because it is killer, stone cold right. What I'm trying to say is, the younger sister was outshining Jane so much they had to keep going back to that well, dude.
And I will give him credit. Like, I know you said, okay, well, yeah, it's Karen. I will give credit to the other characters in that everybody figured it out very quickly. It wasn't like one of those mysteries that got drug on. Right. And I'm like, okay, when I'm watching this movie, I'm like, okay, that's very good. It moves fast. And yet, later on, one of the most obvious pieces of symbolism regarding an eclipse. Everybody suddenly is engulfed with mental delusion. They can't. Listen, I saw this film as a little kid. What, in 1989? How old was I? I was 6 years old, 7 years old, and I'm screaming at the TV screen, "Eclipse, you idiots!"
An eclipse.
And I'm cursing in Greek.
Nice. Yes.
I could be wrong in my assessment here. But I think that one of the biggest disappointments you guys may have had with this movie is that it started off very well. There were elements that did hook you, that did some things right. And as it goes towards this ending, it starts unraveling. You start seeing these holes. Characters start acting stupid for no reason. Other characters suddenly agree to do things that in their previous scene they never would have done before, with little bridging or explanation, leading to an ending that was refilmed a couple of times. Am I right in this assessment? I mean, other than the Lynn-Holly Johnson's acting, which I would say wouldn't, but given how many trees there are in this film and what good performances they give,
they did a good job.
I wouldn't have announced it that way necessarily, but I can't find a way to counteract or adjust your approach. No, I think you're spot on there, Chief.
Anybody who knows me knows I like the show The Office. There's a character, Erin. She talks about horror movies. She says she loves it at the beginning because the family's all happy, and then it happens. So in this movie, they did the job. They started off with the family so happy. So we expect a train wreck, and it didn't give you the train wreck where the entire family is massacred in the house. Everybody survived this one. I mean, spoilers, dude. Everybody survived. So I mean, yeah.
Well, there was no black guy to kill first.
True, and that's probably why everybody survived. Like, let's be completely real. Like, I wasn't gonna be the first person to mention race in this episode. Yes. That is probably why because if there was one, you know what, there was a black guy. He was there on the other side of the rock where the motorcycle hit. We didn't see him die, but he got X'd.
Well,
anyway.
Now that we've broken that suit of cards here and we're talking race, you knew the ish was going down when the white chick that looked like Jan from Brady Bunch starts saying she don't feel right. When the white woman don't feel safe, that should tell you some shit.
True. Because it's usually those that want to stay and investigate. Let's look around. Hold on. Let's split up. I'll be right back.
Which I love. I love the subversion. This off topic. I love the subversion of that in Ghostbusters. We should split up. Yes, we could do more damage that way.
Yes, that was great.
Leading up towards this ending. Now, this film infamously, when it came out in 1980 for like a week, if that. There have been some conflicting reports about how long it may have come out, and maybe it may have just been the preview, or may have been in theaters for a week. Either way, Disney pulled it out real fast and replaced it with a anniversary screening of Mary Poppins. The initial version of this film was... I know. The Witch Nanny. They replaced The Watch in the Woods with The Witch Nanny. Anyway.
I can't, Demos. I can't.
You can't write this. This really happened, man.
That really happened. So, the original version was a little bit more intense. This film had a lot of issues behind the scenes. It was directed by the same director as Legend of Hell House. Also, Escape to Witch Mountain, funny enough. And they were trying to make it scarier, and there was conflict within Disney from the same people that said this could be our Exorcist. Now they're like, oh, these scenes are too intense. The film had an original alternate opening where it didn't, the credits weren't played over trees and fog. The original the film opened with the Watcher sneaking up on a little girl, scaring her, and the girl drops her doll. The doll spontaneously catches on fire, and the credits are played over this doll's melting face. Yeah, that sounds like an opening to a horror film, right?
It does.
Touchdown.
Yeah. So this film had it was originally filmed to be far more intense, and if you can track down the original script, I very much recommend it. It fills in a little bit more on the backstory of some of the characters. It touches a little bit more on witchcraft and occult, which Disney pulled most references out of the film because they were too scared of having a horror film with witchcraft in it. But famously, it had its ending completely changed and refilmed by a different director, Vincent McEvedy. Now, the original ending, which you two gentlemen just suffered through, basically, I've never quite seen an alternate ending like this. An ending that, although there are some hints in the final version of the film, but I've never seen an alternate ending that completely changes the goddamn genre of the film before.
That's legit, man. No, like you were saying that in production meetings, and when I'm like, changes the genre of the film. So like what? It's like it's horror as opposed to what? Like mystery? What are you talking about? No, the shit goes straight sci-fi. And frankly, I haven't seen anything that off the rails and bad since the actual ending of the Indiana Jones movie, which we don't talk about. That that runs when I take Demos's cup coaster and put it in my disk drive by mistake. Okay, the punchline is this. When I saw this alternate ending, Demos, like this is the biggest, whoa, I'm glad you changed it out, that on a movie we've done since Close Encounters. Like, I'm real glad that she didn't come back out to the seance and go, okay? Like, that's how bad this alternate ending was. It was as bad as Close Encounters alternate ending, but at least that made sense. It kept it to still be an alien movie. But I'm done.
The ending of the film, as it stands today, is basically the young girl gets possessed, and through her possession explains what happened, that she was an entity, and they actually swap spaces, and a mystical beam of light comes out and eventually brings Karen back, the lost blindfolded girl. Now, the original ending, that was, I should point out, the effects were unfinished. The final version may not have looked as hokey as this is, I hope not. But an alien shows up. The Watcher is an alien. He takes Jan off to his spaceship. Finds Karen encased in this force field. The explanation that the screenplay has, that not even the deleted scenes have, were that she became negative energy and Jan was positive energy because she is still from the real world, and when they touch, they cancel out, and that brings them back to Earth, more or less.
So let me tell you, it's interesting that you point that out, Demos, because I'm watching this. I'm like, so what the explanation for this is very similar to Ant-Man and the Wasp. Quantum realm.
The
Was that
ending.
Michelle Pfeiffer that scooped her up? Had they stopped a little earlier, I would have been perfectly fine. I would have felt better about the movie. Like with the alternate ending, because you brought in the concept of witchcraft. So now when the demon appears, because when I first saw it, I thought it was a demon. I didn't think it was an alien.
Me too.
You're talking witchcraft, and you got this ugly horse monkey that we now realize is Michelle Pfeiffer in costume, Quantum Realm. She comes out of nowhere, grabs her in this dark reddish light, and then disappears. In credits, in movie, bank.
Yeah, no Disney movie would have ended quite like that.
Right, because it's not happy. We don't have our resolution. We have another blonde white girl gone, and we can't end that way. But I'm telling you, had y'all end like that right there.
It's interesting that you bring that up.
Half a popcorn on that one.
It's interesting that you bring that up because the ending, yet a second alternate ending, the ending that was used in the very quickly released 1980 version was pretty much the same ending that you all just saw, with one exception. It didn't go off to space or the other dimension. It was actually a little bit more open-ended. You know, it could be interpreted that it's a demon or an alien or so forth. It shows up, it swoops up the girl, they disappear, the mother comes in frantic, and then the girl and Karen, Jen and Karen reappear, and happy ending. The weakest thing about the ending that we did end up with is that Bette Davis could not travel abroad and actually refilm her scenes with the new actress. So we didn't see her and Karen properly meet up like we did in the original ending. And that was a powerful scene that it's missing. The whole movie was building up to this moment, and we see Bette Davis do it as a double.
Yeah. Well, and here's the BS, dude. The problem that exists is in the alternate ending as well. You take the little girl out of the equation completely. No, you've been going supernatural this whole time, and now you're going to try to science me? Bullshit.
As a children's horror film, would you say that this is recommended?
At the end of it, I honestly felt like the Never-Ending Story was more of a horror movie than The Watcher in the Woods, but it's all good. I like the Never-Ending Story. I thought The Watcher in the Woods was a film, and I actually said at the end of it, my kids would think that this is a horror movie. My kids would think that this is scary, and my kids could actually watch this because there's nothing in there too ridiculous that they couldn't watch. So with regards to horror movies and trying to get my kids to follow in my footsteps with my love of the genre, I think that this should be required viewing for kids trying to get into the horror games. Surprise, Kyle.
Oops, pal, surprise. No, man. I would not put this in my starter set that TJ alludes to. I'm not knocking your opinion, dude. I think that's not a bad take. I would get the mystery version that came with like the detective cap and the magnifying glass, so they could also play Sherlock Holmes at the same time. And I would get the version that actually features Escape to Witch Mountain. I really think this, like, first of all, I think one reason why they took the alien out is it was too much like frickin' Escape from Witch Mountain. Okay?
No, the aliens in that movie didn't look like that.
No, they didn't. But the whole concept of an alien being involved at all.
Yeah, okay, that I grant you that. It set up so many things right. The mystery was great. The early special effects were great. The some of the horror elements really hit. The cinematography was great. Even the music I thought was very good. That haunting lullaby that they sing and hear in the woods. Effective shit. But the ending just kills it for me. I'm not the only one who thinks that way, because Disney figured it out and said, oh crap, let's try to refilm this ending 3, 4, 5, 155 times.
Demos, I'm looking at the script for this episode. You took my line.
To get to the answer of, is this a required viewing for kids being exposed to one of their first horror films? I think that this is an effective first step. It is not as intense as some of the other films which we've cited. It's not as intense as Return to Oz. I do agree with Kyle. I think Escape to Witch Mountain, although it's much more of a fantasy and much more of an optimistic film,
Right.
is a good predecessor to a film like this. However, if you want to introduce your kid to something that does set up good mystery and does set up a good atmosphere, I think that this is an effective way to do it. And maybe also as a learning tool. Hey, sometimes the answers to mysteries can suck. So what did you guys think of Watching the Woods? Is it one of your childhood favorites, or have you ever even heard of it? Does the thought of a Disney horror film appeal to you? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know some of your favorites. And TJ, thanks as always for joining us for the month of October. We'll have to do more horror films with you.
Now, look, I'm always into it. And I mean, looking at the criteria for what gets on this show, I mean, we got some oldies, but some goodies that we can get into, man. So I'm definitely excited about it. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Where can we find you?
Folks can follow me on Twitter and Snapchat the same, Tokyo J. That's TOKEOJ. Every Tuesday night, I'm sitting down with that man right there, Mr. Incredible, the student of the game, Kyle Nash. Man, we have a lot of fun on dinner time. Talking Shiz every Thursday night at 11 p.m. Man, I'm all over the place, and I'm still a super dad. So, hey, look, and I get to be with you guys talking movies. I can't wait to get into some more stuff, man. Y'all got to get more used to this face here.
Holla at your boy.
He said it. Message.
And Kyle, I want to see a little bit more of your Mr. Incredible shirt. It's getting cut off. There we go. Okay, that's legit. That's legit. Where can we find you?
Of course, you can find me on Twitter at the SOTG, and on Instagram as the same, the SOTG, and of course on Facebook as the Student of the Game. Check out my awesome writings on Sports Media Pass, a company of Blue HQ Media, as I cover the UCF Knights. And then, of course, check out my work if you're more into the NFL with the Dolphins Wire of USA Today. And when I'm not here rapping with Demos and default, Hilarity by Default, you heard this guy right here. Dinner time. What's up?
And of course, you can always find me looking to the horizons on hilaritybydefault.com. We have fun stuff every week. And of course, find us right here on YouTube, where you should subscribe, like this video, and find us every Thursday where life is hilarious by default. Savvy?